Super Bowl 60 is set as the Seahawks and Patriots take care of business on Sunday in the AFC and NFC Championship games. We'll break down both of those games in this episode, as well as Patty Pimblett and Justin Gaethje have one of the greatest fights of all time on the Paramount Plus debut, UFC 324 over the weekend. ZUFFA Boxing also makes its debut over the weekend on Paramount Plus as well. All that and more we're going to get into in this episode of the podcast. So welcome back to the Papa Schro Knows Podcast. I'm your host, Papa Schro. Let's get into it. All right, so to kick us off, just as me and EDJ both predicted, the Patriots go on to win 10-7 on Sunday in what was a defensive battle. And then, of course, the crazy second half with all the snow. It was a good game. It was an entertaining game. I don't know if you guys thought so. Let me know in the comments below. Drake May, 86 yards was good enough to get it done in this game. Like I said, this thing was a defensive struggle. Jarrett Stidham actually had 133 yards. And early in the game, I mean, Jarrett Stidham really looked like he settled in pretty well to the Broncos offense and looked like this was going to be more of a game than we thought coming in. They just couldn't get anything done or anything going in the second half of that game. They had that one big drive that came very early in the game, and that was just about it for the Broncos offense. Came off of that 52-yard pass to Marvin Mims, and then the Cortland Sutton touchdown, and those are the only points the Broncos get. Second offensive drive of the game. Both teams trade 3-and-outs early on their opening drives, and then you get to I think it was in the second quarter, where you get the turnover from Stidham that led to the touchdown, directly to a touchdown. 2 plays later. The Patriots score. Drake May running it in, ties the game. A blocked field goal that the Patriots had. I mean, this game had a little bit of everything. And you look at the first half, clear field. Yeah, I don't know about sunny skies, but, you know, it was a cold day in Denver. And then by the fourth quarter, I mean, it is a snowstorm. And we had that huge snowstorm passing through most of the U.S. over the week. We saw plenty of snow here in Kansas City. And it was a wild game. It was a fun game, and we got a snow game in the playoffs. You know, at least a snow half we got in the playoffs. But the Patriots did a great job, I think, of, you know, just knowing that they couldn't get beat over the top. They had that great 4th-and-1 stop, and, you know, Stidham really couldn't get anything going. I mean, early on, felt like the Broncos maybe had a chance. Stidham, you know, settles in to the Sean Payton offense, and you know, the Broncos just weren't able to get any points. I mean, they had 2 missed field goal attempts, I think. One was the block later in the game, but in the first half that ended up helping the Patriots also miss a field goal, right? So missed field goals all around. This was before the snow even hit. There were swirling winds, but the Patriots then in the third quarter got that field goal that ended up sealing the game, and Jarrett Stidham throws an interception to seal the game. So I think Drake May had a better game all around. No fumbles lost, which is good. I think he had 4 total in the Texans game. But, you know, Drake May was able to take care of the football and do what he needed to do. And 86 yards was enough to get it done, 10 of 21. That's wild. Took 5 sacks, though. Jarrett Stidham took 3. And I think that both of those defenses are just phenomenal, and we saw that all day on Sunday. Offenses were not able to do much. It does worry me about the Patriots, and we'll talk about this later on. I'm sure sometime probably next week, and give our final picks for the Super Bowl next Thursday. The week always throws me off in between, as we'll get the Pro Bowl games this upcoming weekend, but the Patriots, it does worry me a little bit against that Seattle team, because I think that any of these NFC teams are a little bit more complete and put together than any of the AFC teams. We could see a surprise in the Super Bowl, but I think the Patriots definitely need to shore up that offense somehow. I mean, however they can do it, whether it's establishing the run better, changing up some of the passing concepts they're running, or what they can find on film with the Seahawks that's worked, because the Rams had a pretty good day. By the end of it, both of the last 2 games against the Seahawks. But so maybe they can, you know, get on some of the stuff that the Rams were doing to, I just don't know if you have a Puka Nacua or a Devontae Adams. I mean, Stefon Diggs is still very serviceable, but I would, you know, perception-wise, I would say both of those receivers are better than anything that the Patriots have on their offense. But the way they can scheme it together, Kayshon Bouttie's had a great year. Hunter Henry's had a great year as well. But crazy to think that the Patriots have went from Tom Brady to, Bill Belichick not being able to put anything together, which, that's a tall task to put something together after literally the greatest run in football history over the last 20 years that the Patriots have had with Belichick and Brady, to then Cam Newton, and old Cam Newton, let me not say that like, it's not superstar Cam Newton, right? To Mac Jones, to then drafting Drake May and Mike Vrabel coming around and taking over this Patriots team. And I'll say it a million times because I've said it plenty on this podcast, especially over the last month or so. But the Tennessee Titans firing Mike Vrabel was one of the dumbest decisions made in the last, I don't know, as long as I can remember. Honestly, I just did not understand why fire the guy that got you so far with so little, really. I mean, you got Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, which, I don't know. I never believed in Tannehill being some type of elite quarterback. He was a very serviceable quarterback, I think maybe slightly above backup level, really, in the NFL. And that might be a little bit disrespectful to some people, to Ryan Tannehill, but when you got Derrick Henry and you're running off play action with A.J. Brown, I mean, those guys can make you look really good, really quick. And so, the way that Vrabel put that offense together, and he's doing the same thing in New England. He's doing the same thing for Drake May, and I think Drake May has, definitely got the potential to be much more talented than we saw Ryan Tannehill. So if we can continue to see, Vrabel put together this offense, has 2 weeks now to prepare for this game, I think the Patriots are in good shape to at least make this game a game, because I do think that the AFC was very weak, and I'm still kind of shocked that we don't see the Bills here, but the defense ruled the AFC this year. At the end of the day, you look at the teams, all the Final Four teams, had very, Buffalo's defense wasn't as great, but, the Denver Broncos, New England Patriots, Houston Texans, these defenses were elite. So, what we saw in the AFC mostly this year, does it translate to the big game? I mean, obviously defense wins championships, so I think there's a pathway to victory for the Patriots, absolutely, but they get the job done on Sunday, no less, and they do it, keeping up the same MO that they've kept up through the playoffs. Be smart, and obviously that was a crazy game against the Texans, but, protect the football, be smart with the football. Drake May did that on Sunday, and really the quarterback turnovers is what changed the whole game. Do the Broncos win this game with Bo Nix? I don't think necessarily they win this game with Bo Nix. I think they have a much better opportunity to win this game if they don't have Bo Nix. Maybe they don't have at least one of those costly turnovers. Bo Nix isn't the best at taking care of the football from what we've seen, but definitely more serviceable than Jarrett Stidham. But congratulations. I did not want to say that. To the New England Patriots for getting back. Kind of crazy when you think about it. The Patriots going back to the Super Bowl is kind of wild. And I think really that makes just the Bengals. So what, in the last 7 years we've seen just the Bengals outside of the Chiefs and Patriots going to the Super Bowl for the AFC? I feel like I'm skipping over a team, but that's the only other year that the Chiefs didn't make the Super Bowl, was when the Bengals beat them in the AFC Championship game. Been to the Super Bowl pretty much every other year since then. And then, of course, the Patriots back in 2018, when they beat the Rams. So, let's talk about those Rams. Rams versus Seahawks 3 for the 2025 season did not disappoint. If you didn't like what you saw in the AFC Championship game, you got a much different game in the NFC Championship game later on in the afternoon. 31-27 Seahawks come away with the victory, and Matt Stafford did everything in his power to will the Rams back to the Super Bowl. Wasn't quite able to do it. 374 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 22 of 35. Sam Darnold on the other side, 25 of 36, 346, also 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The quarterback play was elite in this game. Rushing wise, The Rams didn't have much to speak of, although I did like the change of pace with Blake Corum. I feel like that was working, especially in the second half. Blake Corum really came in to help the Rams in a big way, and on some of those drives, I feel like really got them through. 9 carries for 55 yards. He averaged 6.1. Kyren Williams right under 4 yards per carry. A lot of passing in this game, though. As I said, what was it at? 35 attempts for Matthew Stafford in this game. Matthew Stafford even had a big run, 13-yard run for a first down. You don't see Matt Stafford run the football, and you know that's what I mean. Is just Matt Stafford was doing anything and everything possible to get the Rams back to the Super Bowl. And I mean, you're right there in the NFC Championship game. Why would you not? But it was awesome to see. You know, we got to see a special performance from both sides. Sam Darnold and Matt Stafford, as Darnold even got in on the running action, 3 carries for 9 yards. Kenneth Walker, not a bad game, 19 for 62 and a touchdown. He really started the game off very strong early on, and it looked like the Seahawks might roll over the Rams, much like they did the 49ers. Rams gave much more of a fight, which they were a lot healthier than the 49ers were. But George Olani, 3 carries for 4 yards. He had a really rough drop at one point. I don't know if he had any catches. He did have 3 catches for 27 yards. But that drop was rough. But also the third string guy, you know, with Charbonnet being out. Wonder if he will be back for the Super Bowl. Go back to the... I don't know if we have... I mean, obviously there's no injury designations for the Super Bowl yet. But I am curious because I don't remember exactly what the injury was to Charbonnet off the top of my head. But what a game, man. Back and forth. I thought it was going to be controversial there at the end because I thought Puka was out from the, very first, from the live viewing. I thought Puka was out on that very last play of the game, and I thought the Rams were going to have a real chance to throw one more. He was ruled down inbounds, which I think was the correct call. It was very close, but when they slowed it down, definitely looked like the correct call. They did go back and review it real quick before they, everybody was on the field already. But before they called the game off and said it was over, the ref came over the PA and said that the call was confirmed, that Puka was inbounds when he was tackled. What a game. I mean, it came down to that last play. Puka Nacua, 9 catches, 165, and a touchdown. Devontae Adams, very solid game. 4 catches for 89 yards and a touchdown. Kyren Williams had a couple of catches for a touchdown, which was a great play that they schemed Kyren Williams wide open on. To really get back in the game, because you felt like coming out of into the second half, once Seattle got that touchdown, it felt like it was going to be tough for the Rams to get back in that game. They were down, I think, 11 at that point, 31-20, and they did get the touchdown to get back in the game. Jake Bobo with a big touchdown, 17-yard touchdown catch. I'm very excited about that. If you followed this channel at all, going back to that draft class, I was high on Jake Bobo, who I think ended up going undrafted out of UCLA to Seattle. But he was a guy that I thought the Chiefs could use, especially kind of like that Justin Watson type build, to be, a guy that's you cycle him in at receiver, and he's had some good moments over these last couple of years. So I always get excited when I see Jake Bobo making plays. Cooper Kupp, 4 catches, 36 yards. JSN, though, the man of the game, had a touchdown that he was wide open for. 10 catches, 153 yards. I mean, JSN has emerged as one of the top receivers in the league this season. And I couldn't be happier as a dynasty fantasy player. Shout out to my boy Ray trading JSN to me a couple of years ago for Lamar Jackson. That was ended up working out for me in the long run. But JSN, man, he has had a wonderful season, and I just, not that the Patriots defense can't stop this Seattle offense, because I think they can, although we did see Sam Darnold under pressure a little bit in this game. He was sacked 3 times. I'll have to look at maybe like the next gen stats to see how many times he was pressured in this game. So 14 total pressures against Sam Darnold, as you see right here, on 40 dropbacks. Look at that EPA, Sam Darnold led everybody in EPA per dropback this weekend. And EPA, obviously, we're going off one-game sample, so I like to use the EPA per dropback just to give a real idea, and I'm not going to go too far into that. We can go into that in the offseason, talk about EPA a little bit, but 35% pressure rate throughout the game. That was, well, it was the worst in this game, but not as bad as Drake May and Jarrett Stidham had to deal with on Sunday afternoon. So Sam Darnold dealt with the pressure pretty well, I think. And, looking at that and seeing he got pressured, the most times out of anybody over the weekend in 14. Obviously, he had many more dropbacks than the other. Well, I guess not as different as Stidham, but with 37. But Drake May especially 29 dropbacks, getting pressured on 14 of the 40. But that was one of the keys that me and EDJ both talked about going into this game was if you can get Sam Darnold pressured and rattled a little bit, maybe throw him off of his game. It did not work in this game. Sam Darnold had a terrific game, 127.8 rating versus Matt Stafford's 127.6. I don't know. We got a wonderful Sunday. And especially coming off of, if you're also a fight fan, the fights that we saw on Saturday night, which was just pandemonium from start to finish, which we'll get into in a minute. What a weekend in sports in general with the championship games. Now we get a week to kind of collectively breathe and really think about this matchup because it is a fascinating matchup in my opinion just because of, I still feel like this year's just been so weird where I don't know how to put it because I don't want to say that I don't believe that the Seahawks are the best team in the NFC or in the NFL. Vice versa with the Patriots, best team in the AFC or the NFL. Obviously, the Patriots had a weak schedule this year, but, the other guys couldn't get it done. I mean, even Mahomes, when you look at with the Chiefs, Mahomes had a great season, but just that team was not able to put it together, and Mahomes was not able to will them ahead like he has been able to do in the past. And so that's why I just feel like it's still super weird going into the Super Bowl because I just don't know, will things go back to normal next year? I don't know if I believe in Drake May or Bo Nix, kind of bringing them into it as well as the, breaking into the elite. And I don't know if I'm just kind of looking at it from a perspective of this last era of quarterbacks to kind of come in when you talk about Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow, Allen, these guys getting into the mix. Hey, can you throw Sam Darnold in that now? Man, shout out to Sam Darnold and the journey he's been on the last couple of years. But just kind of what I'm getting at is am I lowering this new generation of quarterback where I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, and I think we'll get some answers with the Super Bowl, but really get some answers to what kind of the shift is for the NFL over the next few years, next season. I don't know how great this quarterback class is that's going to be coming out. Even Dante Moore went back to Oregon, so it's also going to be a weird year for getting quarterbacks in to the NFL as well. Although, what a game. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about both AFC, NFC championship games. Wonderful weekend of football. We got both sides of it. We got a very strategically offensive game, and we got a very strategically defensive game. Now we get to see that collide in the Super Bowl, so I'm excited. Okay, let's talk about this card from Saturday night. UFC 324, Gaethje versus Pimblett for the interim lightweight championship of the world. What a fight. This fight was insane. Shout out. Let me know what you guys thought about this fight. But, I mean, the heart and toughness that Paddy Pimblett showed in this fight was absolutely insane. It was also a little bit disappointing, I think, the second round drop, just because it was a very clear eye poke. And, it's something that we deal with in our NFL fandoms, talking about officiating and things like that. And it is tough to be out there live right there in person. You can't just look at a replay and, oh man, he poked him in the eye. Everything is going on right in front of you, right? You're not watching on TV. You're in there with them. I don't think the ref was at a good angle to see it, so I understand it, but it does kind of deflate a little bit because right when it happened, I thought that's exactly what happened. The thumb went in the eye. I didn't know how bad until they showed the replay. It was pretty rough, and it cut Patty's eye. So that did kind of suck, but it also, it translated from the first round. Justin Gaethje was winning this fight already in the first round and already landed a ton of significant strikes in that opening round. 40-38 total strikes, significant strikes 27-37 in the opening round, which actually went to Patty. But I'm pretty sure, there was a knockdown in there. That's what I say. I remember round one. Then another knockdown in round two. Total strikes and significant strikes on Gaethje's side. Thought Gaethje won this round as well. Round three. This is where I thought Patty started to kind of turn it around a little bit. I gave Patty rounds 3 and 5, I believe, on Saturday night live. You got the one takedown for Gaethje in the 4th round. In the 5th round, I didn't think he had a takedown at all. Although the strikes, 39-29, significant 29-21 on Gaethje's side. Maybe it was round 4 that I gave Pimblett. Maybe 3-4, and then Justin to finish out 5. I didn't write it down or anything. I guess I could go back and look at my text. Because shout out to Ray, me and him were texting about it while the fight was going on. But I did have it 3-2 Gaethje, and I mean, obviously Gaethje won the fight. Not to get down to the round-to-round breakdown like that meant something, but, Gaethje was very strong in this fight, and I think he did exactly what he needed to do in this fight. And I did the fight film breakdown on this card, or on this fight, for Patty and Gaethje, and that was one thing that I kind of hinted to of that was going to be a big, thing for Patty Pimblett in this fight, to be able to fight from the outside. He wasn't able to keep Justin Gaethje off of him, and the power difference was very clear in this fight, that Patty's punches just did not hold up to Gaethje's at all, because Gaethje did not care whether Patty was hitting him or not. And there was moments where I felt like Patty was turning the tide, just from landing like a few combos here and there, and Gaethje was still just going for the knockout blow, and he was getting, pieced up a little bit, but also there was a big difference, when Gaethje hit Pimblett, you could tell the difference versus when Patty was hitting Gaethje. Felt like Patty was scoring points, Gaethje was, he was collecting damage from Patty Pimblett there. I guess I feel like I said that backwards, but you get what I'm saying. There was a big difference between the two, each of their punches. So total for the fight, 200-170. It was actually closer than I thought. 3 takedowns for Justin Gaethje. I'm excited to be able to just go back and rewatch these fights. Let me know what you guys think about the Paramount deal, because that is so exciting to me. That's one thing that's so frustrating about being a fight fan, is like you watch fights on Saturday night and then you got to wait a month to rewatch them. That's lame. It's just lame. Like when an NFL game is over, and I get it was pay-per-view, so I do understand the reasoning behind that, but it was like right after the game ends. I mean, on the way back home from the 13-second game, I was watching the game on my phone again, while we were driving back from the stadium back home after the game. Like, that's how quick that happens for most sports. But then, which the fight nights it did, but for the numbered events, it was always rough having to wait to go back and rewatch some of these fights to get a feel of what happened again. But very, very good fight. One of the greatest of all time. What a great card to start everything off with. Although there were some weird things, like Bruce Buffer announcing the very first fight backwards. That was pretty funny. I didn't catch that live. I caught that as I was rewatching that fight, because man, Ty Miller looked good, and we'll talk about him in a minute, because that was one of my biggest takeaways from this card. Sugar Sean O'Malley. I couldn't have been more wrong about this. I did not get to doing a prediction video, I was going to do a prediction video after I didn't get it in on the podcast on Thursday, but I'll be very upfront. I had Song Yadong going into this fight until about when they played the pre-fight package, and I guess I don't know if I just didn't watch. I did watch the countdown show. I think I was working while I had it on in the background, so maybe I didn't pay attention to some of the stuff Sean O'Malley was saying, but I feel like I just got the vibe that Sean O'Malley was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out going into this fight, And then they play this hype package. It's like Sean O'Malley's like, I'm all in while I'm all here. And I'm like, damn, man, okay, maybe Sean O'Malley's going to do something tonight. And he did. Footwork was the biggest key to this fight. Song Yadong did a very good job at trying to find O'Malley. But O'Malley did a very, even better job at, being elusive and being smart with his footwork and his awkward style that he's got. But O'Malley looked all the way back. I did feel like he got a little bit tired there towards the middle of the fight, and I felt like Song Yadong should have, tried to press a little bit more. But that was really my only critique of Song Yadong's performance. I think that he definitely should have pressed more, especially in those moments where he felt like O'Malley was tired, which I feel like I kind of picked up on a tick of O'Malley. When he gets tired, he starts throwing that front kick to the body. That's something with Merab. It just kind of clicked because the moment I feel like he hadn't thrown that yet in the fight, and the moment I felt like, okay, he's looking like he's getting a little tired of trying to fend off Song Yadong's takedown attempts and things like that. He threw that front teep, and I thought, oh, okay. Now I'm going to have to go back and watch the Merab fight again when he rocked him with that to the body. And that was later in the fight. So, he more than likely was tired by that point against Merab. Kind of crazy to see the total strikes, 67-69. That Song Yadong actually outstruck Sean O'Malley, but significant strikes really tells the fight. 48-36 for Sean O'Malley, 3 of 7 on his takedown attempts for Song Yadong. He had some moments that he looked really good in that fight. Go back to the drawing board, and I think Song Yadong can still hang around in the upper echelon of this division, and still has something left to give before I think we start to see some of the decline. The weirdest fight of the night easily goes to Waldo Cortez Acosta and Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis just was absolutely mismatched in this fight. Cortez Acosta was so much faster and cutting angles. Like, it just was not, even the moments that Derek Lewis really went after him, he really followed the advice of his corner heading into round 2 and really trying to attack Waldo Cortez, and kind of felt like he just gave up. He's kind of just done. He's like, I can't get to this guy. I'm not hanging out for 3 rounds. I'm not going to get my win money anyways. Let's just get it over with. And it felt very, Texas Ray said it was very Bob Sappish of Derek Lewis. So very weird fight. Maybe gets the heavyweight division moving forward a little bit better. Waldo Cortez Acosta didn't look bad. I don't know. Could he hang with a Cyril Gane or Tom Aspinall? I'm not really sure. But he's trending in the right direction and, looked good on Saturday, so we'll see what the UFC has next for him, but I think could really get the heavyweight division moving forward a little bit better. It just has not. Derek Lewis really killed the last attempt, and I can't even remember the guy's name off the top of my head that he knocked out in his last fight, but he was undefeated going into that fight. Robbery of the night. Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas. I definitely thought Rose won this fight, and there was just like a super lack of anything going on. And Natalia Silva, even like in the fight, it just felt like she was too worried to get in range with Rose. She very much fought from the outside. She didn't have the reach to do it. And I don't know, dude, it just was not, stylistically, it did not work out between those two to put on a good fight. And I think there was a lot of respect, shown from Silva to Rose, probably power-wise, and it wasn't until the 3rd round where she really started to get active. So I definitely thought Rose was up 2-0 going into the 3rd round, but, I do also understand because there was just such a lack of anything going on. And Natalia Silva really did outdo her in every statistic, 63-46 total strikes, 51-26 on the significant strikes. Each had 1 takedown. I don't know, but definitely felt like Rose won that fight. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Arnold Allen and Gene Silva to get this thing kicked off, to get the main card kicked off anyways. Absolutely terrific fight. Arnold Allen had his moments, but Gene Silva just showed he was too much for Arnold Allen. Had that funny moment where he jumped on his back, which, I don't know. I feel like I still kind of come from that old Walker mentality and felt like, I don't know, a little tasteless, but is what it is. Got the crowd excited, so I understand. And Arnold Allen didn't seem pissed off about it. So I was right there at the end of the fight, and they shook hands. and hugged it out after the fight. John Silva, 4 of 6 on his takedowns, 78 total strikes, 74 significant. I mean, it was a good fight. I mean, they said they were going to get it started off with a banger, and they sure did. And this whole card, really, from that point before that till now, had been just absolutely fantastic. The main card was weird in the middle. I feel like between the Natalia Silva, Rose Namajunas fight and the Waldez Cortez Acosta and Derek Lewis fight, super weird fights. Got it started off with a banger. Great fight between Sean O'Malley and Song Yadong, and then just, I mean, absolutely phenomenal main event. Going back towards the prelims, so I'm going to kind of pick and choose or go over this fairly quickly. Umar Nurmagomedov with a huge win. Deiveson Figueiredo. I get that wrong every single time. Figgy. He has not looked right at 135. Me and Ray were also talking about this, texting about it, that I just don't feel like in any fight at 135 that I've seen Figgy in, that he just has not looked himself. He hasn't looked as good as he did at 125. And, I know the weight cut issue. I don't know if maybe, you'd want to try to go back that way, if it's just kind of the fall off. I mean, every fighter is going to fall off eventually. It's just the natural progression of things. So I'm not 100% sure if it's the bantamweight or just moving up in weight. And, some of these guys, I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov is a tough dude to deal with. Stand-up wise, great wrestler, obviously. One of the Dagestanians. Great wrestler. And he's trying to get himself back to a title shot. Number 2 ranked bantamweight in the world. And that bantamweight division is weird now, because now do you go, when is Merab going to be back? Does Merab get the immediate title shot and complete that trilogy with Jan? Do we get the rematch with Jan and O'Malley? Where does Umar fit out in this? Which, realistically, probably should have seen Umar go up against O'Malley, but I understand that's not a fight you want to book if there's not a title on the line, because you could definitely make some money off that fight. But also where kind of Umar stands in the, grand scheme of things, him being the featured prelim bout, not even on the main card, versus O'Malley, ended up being the co-main event. Wasn't originally scheduled for that, but got bumped up into that. Gautier versus Pelayev. This was a really good fight, too. I thought Gautier looked good. He kind of gassed out. Looked really good, actually. Let me rephrase that. But he did end up gassing out. Pelayev had a couple of head kicks. It felt like he was just afraid to engage, and understand when you're getting hit, it is hard to want to engage after that, especially when you're getting hit hard. But it was a good fight for Gautier. Good to get that experience under his belt and go the distance. He was able to round it out. But there was a couple of those head kicks. I felt like if he settled up in the third round and just threw that thing with full force, that maybe, he could sneak off with a win. But was unable to do so. Nikita Krylov, a big win with 3 seconds left in the fight against Bukauskas. Perez Johnson, very quick fight. Alex Perez got a big first-round finish there. And then the early prelims, Ty Miller looks like he could be a standout at welterweight. Very young. Came into that fight, I think, 8-0. And he made short work of Adam Fugit. This was a fight I said with Bruce Buffer that he announced them backwards. So that was hilarious. But either way, UFC 324, absolutely amazing card to kick the year off. I think all of us fight fans were very excited for the card and very happy with the card, retrospectively now speaking. But yeah, let me know about your thoughts in the comments below, especially that UFC bantamweight division. And where do you want to see that go next? You want to see O'Malley? Would you rather see Merab get the immediate rematch, or, something else fit into the bantamweight plans? Last but not least, I just want to talk about Zuffa Boxing just a little bit. Probably not going to be very long. But I'm also curious to your guys' thoughts and takes on the Zuffa Boxing thing, because it is very interesting. And, of course, the Dana White and I don't know whether to say the UFC. I mean, Zuffa, the company that, I don't know how that works out business-wise. Obviously, TKO is over the UFC and WWE. Zuffa was the company that was sold to WMEI. got the UFC under the banner to then form TKO when they also bought WWE later on. Zuffa, I don't know technically what it even exists as other than Zuffa Boxing. Now I guess is its own thing. But under that umbrella, interesting. I watched the main event from Friday night. I actually didn't even realize that it was happening. I mean, I knew Zuffa Boxing was a thing. They got in on the Bud Crawford-Canelo fight, or Dana was a part of that. It kind of had to, I don't know, boxing's weird, so forgive me if I just sound like I'm a super casual boxing fan, so we'll start with that. I'm a casual. So forgive me if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, because I do and I don't, if that makes sense. But as a hardcore MMA fan, seeing them bring over the structure, look, I don't like what Dana White has done with trying to get the Ali Act reformed. It's not good, but I don't think that fighting will ever be something that is necessarily beneficial for the fighters, if that makes sense, monetarily speaking. You know, obviously these guys get paid, decent. They don't get paid like they should, especially top to bottom. I mean, I think that some of the things going on in the UFC right now, pay-wise, the $25K per finish, fight performance bonuses going up to $100K is great, and the locker room bonuses being a thing in the past. I think it's more transparent, and the fans can understand it better. I mean, I don't know. You always hear there's some fighters that say, whatever. We get paid what we get paid. We get paid good money. There are other fighters that say, we don't get paid what we should get paid. I mean, you look at, like, Floyd Mayweather back in the day. I mean, he was making, $100 million a fight? Something like that, there at the end, or match. There at the end of his career. I don't know, man. So seeing that side of it is tough, and knowing what Dana and Zuffa Boxing is trying to set up, but at the same time, boxing is such a political sport that they have fractured themselves so much over time, and that I don't think most of these promoters really care about a lot of the younger talent. And I think it's going to be really easy for Zuffa to key in on that. And when you get 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and now Zuffa has started to corner that market of young talent. I mean, they have all the resources. And the first card was in the Apex on Friday night. And I will say, boxing looks way better in the Apex than MMA. I don't know why, but I just felt like it looked better. It looked like, I guess what we're, more so accustomed to seeing, especially growing up watching Wednesday night fights, Friday night fights on ESPN, which also, I think helped with me being, in on this now after hearing Joe Tessitore call the main event on Friday night. So I think if they get that talent cornered, like the market cornered on that talent, it's going to be difficult, because they're going to continue to rise through the ranks as a Zuffa boxer. Now, maybe they send people around to have boxing matches with other guys, and it's a little bit more loose, like the UFC was way back in the day, like when Dana sent Chuck Liddell over to Pride to compete in the tournament. Maybe we'll see more of that, especially in the beginning, but I think eventually, obviously what they want is to get to the point where, Zuffa Boxing is the equivalent to the UFC is in MMA, and get to the, top of the mountain. I think just having a little bit of like a hand in the cookie jar of these big fights, right? How they had their hand in the Bud Crawford and Canelo fight. They've already got the, Saudi money in, and, with their Riyadh season, getting that money in to the sport, and already kind of like starting to corner the main event market essentially in boxing, but then to go back and be able to make your own stars now, build that up over the next few years. I mean, I think in 10 to 15 years, it's going to be tough for some of these guys to compete, especially when you're looking at the structure of boxing and how much it's even just changed over the last really decade. I remember when was it PBC? Was it Premier Boxing Championship, something like that, was going on some of the major networks, and we were starting to get, big boxing matches on major networks again. those were, that was definitely a changing. HBO boxing going away, and I think Showtime is also pulled out of boxing now as well. So, now the streaming's getting into it. We've seen Netflix really get into, some of this other side of boxing. But even the Jake Paul and influencer boxing, like the way it's blown up, I don't think that boxing has this problem if they weren't so, again, political and not structured. You don't get the best guys fighting the best guys. Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather didn't fight until, Pacquiao was pretty much done and over the hill. And, Floyd was a workhorse. I mean, he stayed in his prime for a long time, and I think that Floyd could probably compete with, a lot of guys going now, still, at his age. And so, I don't know, man. I just think that boxing is super flawed. It has been for, the entire history of boxing, and we're going to see someone challenge the status quo. And, things are going to have to change if Eddie Hearn wants to continue to make it. I think that, Eddie Hearn's young enough that, he could probably compete with this, ZUFFA boxing stuff, obviously, as well as the influencer stuff that's going on too. But I don't know, man. The Bob Arams of the world, the really old boxing guys, I think that this is the, end of the tunnel for those guys. When it comes to just what we've seen out of boxing over the last, 100 years, really. And there was a video I watched, I want to say, where Dana was kind of talking about it and just saying how, they go for the big money every time. They're trying to maximize and squeeze every last dollar out of every little matchup, which, granted, everybody's trying to do that. Every time, but just to a level where also on a boxing card. I remember when I bought the Mayweather Pacquiao card, and there was boxing matches before it. I was a hardcore MMA fan. I'd never watched a live boxing pay-per-view at that point, or I don't think I'd ever bought one on my own. I may have went out and watched a boxing match here and there, Floyd Mayweather boxing, but I didn't even know there was an undercard, and things like that. But then also to the level of like the undercard at a UFC event versus the undercard at a boxing event. Nobody cares about the undercard at a boxing event. Versus where, you're starting to see some of those, like, maybe like 2 to 4 fights out, depending on the card, of the main card. You're starting to see the crowd fill up. Not everybody's crazy like Theo Von sitting there watching from the very beginning, but, or at least in their seats, which that's a lot of fighting to be watching, because I think the fights started at 5 p.m., ended at like 10:30 or something. I will also say this, for the UFC going to Paramount Plus, them starting an hour earlier is on point. That is amazing. I did really like the 8 p.m. start time, Central-wise, rather than the 9 o'clock, the usual start time, which they played around with the start time in years past, and they've always went back to the 9 o'clock slot, but I do like the 8, getting things done. We'll see when we have cards with 2 title fights on it. But just going back to the boxing, I'm just really curious about what other people's thoughts are on this. Again, I'm a super casual boxing fan, so I may be ignorant to some things and that go on in the boxing world that, maybe this doesn't work long term, but it just feels like, looking at it outside in, man, this is the play to really put everybody out. And by the time that, we get 2, 3, 4 maybe superstars or, stars of the boxing world on levels that they can sell really, fairly big pay-per-views, what are the others going to do? You know what I mean? It feels like, a moment where really going to have to adapt with the times for some of these guys that have been doing it for a long time. Either way, I'm going to stop rambling on about the ZUFFA boxing stuff. Until next time, I'll be back on Thursday. Possibly have EDJ on. We got UFC 325 coming up this weekend, so I'm definitely going to be previewing that on the Thursday edition of the show and, giving out my picks for that. I would like to say my playoff picks have been absolutely terrific, 10-2 in the playoffs. Only missed on, I think it was the Niners beating the Eagles. I had the Eagles in that game, and the Bills losing to the Broncos. I had the Bills in that game. So your boy has been on point. Take my picks and take them to the bank, I guess, right? Other than that, don't think I have anything else to say. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed, especially if you're still here. Hit that like button for me. We are, I don't really have a goal right now, but subscribe if you enjoy the content. Got plenty of stuff coming up. I'm working on some stuff film-wise and plan to get the off-season rolling with some football film very soon. And I want to try to work on more fight breakdowns. Nobody's probably here anyways anymore. Until next time, Will Pop Show out of here.